Am I the asshole for banning my father from my home because he banned me from his when I was younger? When I was 15, my father married a woman I just could not get along with. And there was a lot of friction with her daughter as well. Eventually, the fighting got so bad that my father told me that he would exercise his custody at my grandparents' house instead, effectively banning me from his own home. I said thanks but no thanks and stopped seeing him as per the custody schedule. He did make attempts to fix our relationship but I wasn't interested. We would see each other at family events and we were nice enough to each other but that's it. It's now 13 years later and I'm married with a 1-year-old. His wife has passed away in an accident a few years ago and I'm assuming he's lonely now. But I don't really want to be his backup plan. He comes to see my son once a month and I only see him at the park and don't engage much with him myself. Last December, he point blank asked me why I never invited him to my home for dinner or why I never accepted his invites to visit him. I told him the truth. He was very upset but it's the reality of the situation. Was I the asshole?
Not the asshole. People keep expecting us sons and daughters to be the bigger person and try to fix the screw-ups our parents did to our relations, which is something I do not believe is fair. Your actions are direct consequence of his, and it's his problem to understand and make peace with that.
Not the asshole, he chose his wife and stepdaughter over you. He deserves to know how that hurt you. NTA. You reap what you sow. He can never take back his choice but maybe you can if you feel like it.
Info. When I was 15, my father married a woman I just could not get along with. And there was a lot of friction with her daughter as well. Why couldn't you get along with her? What was causing the friction between you and her daughter? Eventually, the fighting got so bad that my father told me that he would exercise his custody at my grandparents' house. Who was starting the fights? What was the fighting about? Without getting a clearer picture I can't really give a judgment.
Not the asshole. Your dad put his new family before you until his wife died. If she was still alive he'd still be a deadbeat. I'm sorry you've experienced this and I hope you find your peace and healing.
How is everyone voting not the asshole without having any idea what happened with Op and his stepmother, step-sibling? There's an assumption here that they were in the wrong and OP's dad kicked him out for no reason. For all we know, it could have been Op making this a bad situation. Apparently OP's dad made attempts to fix their relationship. If the issue was Op, then it still wasn't right to just ship them off to the grandparents, but there is a lot missing from this post. That being said, Op has no obligation to have their dad in their life, but I'm suspicious as to whether the dad is completely at fault. Not the asshole. He burned the bridges.
Not the asshole. He put all his chips in the losing horse and now he is trying to get into it with the backup. You are nice enough to let him see your son. Info. Do you want a relationship with your father? Do you want him to have a relationship with your child? If not the asshole. If yes, I would reconsider your stance. A grandparent is a wonderful thing to have in a child's life. The woman is dead. The best revenge is living well.
Info. What was your role in the fighting that was so bad you couldn't be in the same house as his wife and her child? I noticed you used passive voice there, which is usually a really good signal that someone doesn't want to take responsibility for something. He didn't say he never wanted to see you again. He said he wanted to see you someplace else, and you are the one who said thanks but no thanks. I know you were a teenager, but that's not exactly a child, and I've seen enough "Am I the asshole" posts from the other side to know that sometimes 16 and 17-year-olds can be extremely toxic. The fact that you gloss over that part and leave absolutely no details tells me there is a chance you were one of those.
Info. Just out of curiosity, is the stepsister still in your dad's life?
Info. Were you chronically abusive through violence, threatened violence, or verbal attacks toward your step-family in a way that removing you from them was thought by your father to be necessary for their safety? I read that your stepmother was abusive toward you, bullying behavior related to body shaming, but not if you also were. If the answer is no, then NTA and you're entirely justified. If yes, then YTA for not being more empathetic toward the difficult position your dad was in trying to maintain a relationship with you while also protecting his wife, other stepchild.
Not the asshole. He wanted a relationship with you at his convenience. Now you have one with him at yours. I'm wondering if he still has a relationship with the stepdaughter.
Not the asshole. Play stupid games, win stupid prizes.
Not the asshole. Shitty parents don't get to just negate the harm they've done when they decide they want to use you again.
No has really been banned in your story. It sounds like you feel rejected by your father, so you've put up some pretty consistent boundaries in response. Seems a little harsh on your part, but I don't have all the context. Nah.
Not the asshole. He wasn't there for you at a critical time. That's the consequence.
Info. Were you being bullying or terrorizing to his wife and stepdaughter? Did your father try to seek family counseling or individual therapy for you? What was the reason you and your stepmom could not get along? It's very telling that he only changed when his wife died. You're obviously only important to him when he has no reason to ignore you. Not the asshole.
Info. More detail on the problems between you, your stepmother and her daughter. What do you mean by, the fighting got so bad? What did you do to each other?
Not enough info here. You just couldn't get along with your stepmother and sister. Why? Were they horrible to you? At 15 it's probably a pretty big change to have a new mom and sister in your life. Do you think you're at all responsible for not being able to get along? Sounds like your dad didn't want to stop seeing and spending time with you, but definitely should have come to a better solution than trying to only see you at the grandparents' house. You also admitted he has tried to fix your relationship repeatedly, but you weren't having it. Unless there's something more to this story, I think you should at least try to be objective about all the events that led up to your strained relationship. Your dad played a part in this strain, but you may not be blameless either.
Not the asshole. Actions have consequences and he is reaping his.
Not the asshole. He turned his back on you when you were a child who needed him. Maybe if he begged for your forgiveness, I could see trying to repair the relationship, but I am a bit surprised that you are as nice to him as you are. Is banning him from your home making you happy? Are you comfortable with modeling this behavior for your own kids? Once upon a time, you decided you hated your dad's wife and stepdaughter more than you loved him. I.e., you couldn't get along with them. Did that decision make you happy? You are the asshole if you keep making decisions that make you unhappy because anger and because revenge. If you are happy, why ask our opinions?
I'd be interested to know why the new wife and stepsister were so awful you couldn't get on with them. Sometimes, and I'm not saying that this was the case with you, teenagers can be impossibly and irrationally angry. Of course the right way to handle that is with therapy, but if there had been physical altercations or things had escalated to the point that wife or daughter felt unsafe, he might have felt he had no other choice than to exercise custody elsewhere while he formulated another plan to improve things. It doesn't change the way you feel things happened though. I think you need to ask him more about why he behaved the way he did. You might find your behavior was something he didn't know how to manage in a more productive way. You may find he was just a dick. You need more info.
You are the asshole. It sounds like your father was trying to find a workable custody arrangement and you cut him out of your life in a tantrum. You even say he tried to fix things and you weren't interested. Now you're holding your own teenage behavior against him, but now you're an adult doing it.
You are the asshole. And I'm seeing several replies saying it's the parents' job to fix the relationship. Maybe it is, but what you've explained are all the ways your father has attempted to do as such, yet you've rebuffed them all. You're an adult now. Relationships are a two-way street. So you didn't get along with dad's wife, her daughter, nor your father. See a pattern here? I'm super glad you at least let your son see your dad, but I think if you at least engaged a conversation with your father, this could start a healing process. You just staying closed off isn't really doing anybody any good. Invite your dad to dinner.
Not the asshole. He's lucky to be allowed to see you and your son at the park. It's more than he has a right to expect. He chose his wife over his child. He doesn't get to pretend that never happened now that she is gone.
I refused to get along with others I lived with. I refused a compromise. I refused all attempts to mitigate the damage I was causing. I refused every attempt at rapprochement or forgiveness. I blamed my dad, others for everything and took no responsibility for any of it myself. Yeah, you are the asshole.
NTA. He gets reaps what he sows or something like that.
Info. I'm confused. It sounds like you didn't like his wife or her daughter, so he still saw you. Or tried to. but wanted to spend weekends with just you at your grandparents' house so you didn't have to be around your stepfamily you didn't like. Why was this a bad thing? It sounds like a great idea and a great way to spend quality time with just you. Would you have preferred being forced to spend weekends in the home with a stepmom you disliked and stepsister you didn't get along with?
Not the arsehole. He picked what side he wanted to take 13 years ago and he chose his wife. Actions have consequences. He can be upset about that all he wants, it doesn't change that he fostered feelings in you that made you not want a relationship with him. He asked a question, you gave him the honest answer. This doesn't deserve judgment. It's above Reddit's pay grade and the stakes are actually really high. I suggest individual and family therapy. You need real resolution. Good luck.
Not the asshole.
I'm sure your dad is entirely at fault and you weren't an asshole when you were 15 at all.
Kinda depends on how at fault you were for fighting with his wife when you were 15. Leaning towards YTA.
Info. There's a lot of vagueness here. What was the friction between your stepmother and sister? Was your dad your primary caretaker, or was this a divorce agreement where you were to visit him every now and then but your mother was generally raising you? You see, you really have to give some more context to this story. For all we know, you might have been some psychotic teenager with parent problem who was impossible to raise next to a new family. I don't know, I'm just saying that your old man has been through a lot and he really want to reconnect. I'm not saying you're the asshole, I'm just saying what I think.
Not the asshole. He made you his second family. You don't have to make up if you don't want to just because he's lonely.
I bet when you was 15 you were sweetness and light and stepmom and stepsister were so mean to you. People in Reddit don't do forgiveness, do they? YTA.
You are the asshole. This post reeks of unsaid asininity. E.g., I didn't get along with my dad's new wife and daughter. And I didn't get along with them to such a degree that my father still wanted to see me, but didn't want to put me in that situation I obviously hated so much. Obviously I was a perfect angel and did nothing to cause anything about this situation. Now he has no one and is lonely and is trying to fix the problems which, again, I was perfectly angelic and had no part in from my youth. I prefer to keep his grandson as my personal bargaining chip in my relationship with him. Is he the asshole?
Not the asshole. You get to make the choices now, but don't bite your nose to spite your face. You may want to be the bigger person. On the other hand, if you don't feel he's truly remorseful, you are being generous by even letting him spend time with you.
You are the asshole. I could understand if he never tried to mend your relationship before his wife passed. He fucked up your relationship then. That is on him. But he did try and you weren't interested then. That is on you.
Wonder why no one is asking for a little more context. People are assuming the reasons you didn't get along are everyone else's fault. Now from what I read, that is clearly an assumption. One side of a story lacking context doesn't really make it true. If and I emphasize if it was all their fault, fine. Edit, I'm gonna assume from what I've read you are the asshole.
Info. Did you really want to keep going to his house if you just wound up fighting with his wife and her daughter? Because it sounds to me like he tried to come up with a solution that allowed you two to see each other without it having to happen in a war zone.
Not the asshole. My girlfriend, 18 is currently in the exact same situation. She was living with her dad and the stepmom and stepsister had problems with her, even though all she mostly does is stay in her room studying and playing video games. Eventually they got her dad to tell her she had to leave, move back in with her mom and not come back. Holy shit, the reaction she had to that. Basically never wants to see or hear from her dad ever again. Completely cut him off. She had a pretty good relationship with him right up until then, too. I think there's just something to a young girl that's cast out by her dad in favor of the other women in his life that just cuts her to the core. Never seen anything like it. Makes me quite angry as well if I think about it too much, to be honest.
I'm married with a 1-year-old. Brewish.
Do what you want, but it seems like a lot of bad can come from keeping this up. Either your son will start to question it and that'll be a weird conversation, or he'll just give up and leave you alone forever. Both my parents died while I was still pretty young, 27 then 32, and as I've gotten older, I've been left with questions that only they could answer. I dunno. Maybe I'm the asshole for offering advice and I don't know your entire situation, but it might be worth it to fight it out with him. Like he might be someone your kids adore and your husband gets along with. If it turns out that he's still a shithead, then at least when he's dead, you'll know you did your best to build a relationship with him.
You are the asshole. Don't be a sissy and actually visit your father. You posting on this idiotic sub to validate your opinion is disgusting. People make mistakes. After 13 years you'd realize that you sobby fuck.
You are the asshole somewhat, at least he tried to fix up the relationship. You need to forgive him and repair that relationship, otherwise the world's a mess.